All right. Well, cool. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the wins. And so, what I wanted to cover today, just briefly, this isn't going to take this long. This, again, smaller group. Um, just in the last couple of weeks, some things that have come up in operations. It's been a little bit of it's been a little, and I'm sure some of you may have heard. I know some of you have heard that uh, there's not a high level. There has been a low level of satisfaction from with processors not feeling appreciated or valued or um, and feeling like, so I created a lot of this problem. And that's the one thing about, if you stay in if, and it's one of the things I love about this business, about this job, is that I'm always learning something new. And the fact that I'm always involved in some coaching and reading another book and listening to another podcast. And I love learning, and so that's a really good takeaway, because you can always get better. I believe that. I don't ever want to get to a point where it's like going, I got it all figured out. I'm going to dial this. I'm going to phone it in now, because I don't think I'll ever have it all figured out. And I think there's always going to be stuff that we can learn. But when Holly was running ops, would frustrate me quite a bit when we would have a bad transaction and a processor dropping several balls and still getting a bonus. And it used to drive me crazy. That's like going, bonus should be for extra effort. Bonus should be because I performed at a high level. Like, here, I got a bonus because I did well, right? Like, that's bonus. So like, hey, got a bonus. I have to pay you hourly, and now I'm going to bonus you if you do the job really well and create a great outcome. And I think and it frustrated me that we didn't have anything like that. And I charged Kim with that when I hired her. Like, I need a way for us to give them an opportunity to perform for the bonus rather than the loan close payment. And so, because the loan could close really ugly and you're still getting paid, and I hated that. So she came up with a really cool system. And it doesn't require, and actually what's cool about it is the processors, you don't know this, but they can make 150% of their bonus. Like, they can actually make $150 on a file instead of $100 a file, because the file bonus was always $100. And by hitting certain milestones at certain levels. So it's nothing crazy like, 100% of your loans have to be clear to close within 10 days. It's nothing like that. It's like a 30% bogey, or a 50%, if 50% of your files, because it's really actually pretty difficult to do on some of these files. You get a 11-day contract and you're like, it's not going to be clear to close 5 days before 5 days before closing. It's just not going to happen, right? And so but we account for that, right? So it isn't like there's a it's like, it's not a hard and fast rule. So it's like, if you get an 11-day contract, then we account for that in the way the bonus is calculated. Part of the bonus is calculated based on your guys' survey of their performance, right? So at the end of the transaction. And one of the comments that was made was that every time I close a loan, I'm waiting to find out what I did wrong. That would be a terrible way to live. And it would be a terrible way to work. And I wouldn't want to work in an environment like that. None of you would either. And so my takeaway on all of this is, and I had just read a passage from the book Emotional Intelligence, which is certainly something I can be better at, for sure. my emotional intelligence is, I'm usually being a smart ass, and I'm like, oh, it's funny, I'm just kidding. But at the same time, I can say things that can be taken the wrong way. And when it comes from me, it carries way more weight than I want it to, but it does, just because I'm the president of the company. And so emotional intelligence is about your ability to understand the impact of the things that you say, and the look on your face, and the things that you say to people, and how it's going to impact them. And I think we've got to figure something else out as it relates to the way we're doing these surveys at the end of the transaction. We still want to, I want a higher level of, the level of accountability that we have in that department is the kind of accountability that I want, because I want people to want to perform at a really high level. If I thought that I had people in the department that didn't care if they were doing a good job and weren't good, didn't have the capacity to be really good at the job, then I'd get rid of them. I just would. So I can't have people who don't care. And we've had people who don't care and they don't work there. So what I'm asking from you, all of you, and this is for all of us, is to try to remember that these are just people who make mistakes. Every person on this call, including me, has made lots of mistakes. And what I know, and because I was thinking about this, like I have never chewed a loan officer out except for Jacqueline. I have never chewed a loan officer out for a mistake that they've made. The way we've chewed out, the way we react, when I say we, the collective we on this call, the way we have reacted when a processor or an operations person makes a mistake. It has never happened because it can't happen because I can't do that to you. Because you'll be like, well, fuck you, Dave. I'll just go do these somewhere else. And all I'm asking for is some kindness and appreciation and an opportunity to show people a little more appreciation. If you're upset with what somebody's done, the best thing to do is not send an email, pick up the phone and call Kim and let's work through it. Because we all want the solution. We all want the same thing. I don't, again, if I was thinking that we have a processor who doesn't care or a person in operations, if we thought Renee didn't care, or a processor didn't care, then we would do something different. But I don't think that's the case. I just think we have, so this is an opportunity for us to be better as a group, as a company, and know that we're going to hold people to high standards because we want a good performance. And at the same time, we're not going to be cruel and I don't know if cruel is the right word. We're just not going to be uncaring in our response to a bad situation, because we're going to always have bad situations. It's just like we're here to fix problems that come up, and it's always frustrating when somebody isn't doing what we want them to do, when the condo desk doesn't respond fast enough, the law desk doesn't respond fast enough, the accounting team doesn't respond fast enough. I got a list, but it doesn't get better because I'm mad. It doesn't get better. It only gets worse. And so I'm just asking for all of us to be aware at a higher level, and to own our own mistakes when we make them, right? Make sure that you're owning your own mistake. That'll go a long, long way. If people see us not owning our mistake, they don't want to own theirs. I think that's, and you're never going to get fired for making a mistake unless you commit outright fraud or something. That's never going to happen. It's like going, shit, you guys screwed up. Like, how are we going to fix this, right? So make sure you're owning it when they do happen. Make sure you're owning it. Your people see that you own it. That goes a long way to making them be more accountable themselves, because they're uncomfortable. They don't know. I mean, they're uncomfortable. They're like, they know they're not loan officers. They know, and you know what? One of the things that what somebody said was really interesting. It's like going, there's people here that are considered untouchable, and they can say or do whatever they want, and nothing's going to happen. That's always been that's hard to hear, because I would hate for people who are I've always had a soft spot for people in operations, because the story that I'll share is we had this girl named JC Jackson. I'm going to have to go back to all of my loan officers that I've hired that don't work here anymore, because I keep thinking of somebody else that worked here. I was like going, oh yeah, JC Jackson and Lisa Norman. JC and Lisa came from Cherry Creek Mortgage. Steve Scanlon referred them to me, G. And JC was one of those, loud, obnoxious, when somebody made a mistake, she would lose her mind people. And I was standing out in the op. We had this bullpen area, kind of similar to what we have now, I guess. Outside offices. We're on the 8th floor, the big office that we had on Lincoln or on Hamden. And this girl came out of her office. I'm standing next to the copy machine making some copies. She comes out of her office and walks across and starts yelling in front of everybody at this processor for a mistake that she had made. And she was like, yeah. I can't remember what it was. And I said, I turned to her and I go, because it was just, I just had this empathy at that moment, because like, well, the processor can't say or do anything except stand up and punch her. Like she can't defend herself, because this person was over the top yelling in front of everybody. She was being humiliated public humiliation. And I just turned around, I yelled, I go, hey. And she turned to me, she looked at me, and I said, get out of here, leave now. And I've always just had this I just feel like the people in operations, it's not those people in operations are always at a subservient level to the sales team. They just always are, and they always will be, because they know you're the ones bringing the heat, right? Without you, there is no company, there is no business if you guys aren't bringing deals in. And I always just feel like they're at a distinct disadvantage that they don't. And I think maybe they all operate, and some more than others have more confidence than others do, and but they all probably operate at a different at a level that you don't ever have to worry about operating, right? So I just would like everybody to keep that in mind and try to be a little more, just take an opportunity to say thank you. When you do, take every opportunity to say thank you. That is what I would say. Take every opportunity you can to say thank you and good job. And you know, because they make 10% of what we make, right? 10%. And there's a reason. There's a reason they make 10% of what we make. There just is. And so, but we need them, and we can't survive without them. So that's what I would ask of all of you. And I know that you'll respond, so I appreciate it in advance. Anybody have any feedback or comment?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I got real quick just to add on to that. A lot of us, Jack, Ryan, you know, we've been in that chair, right? And so we know how it feels to be like overworked and overstressed. And so, yeah, I appreciate kind of this recentering of feedback towards them, because without them, we couldn't get this job done, like you say, Dave. So, yeah, just having these like kind of reminders every so often when maybe things are slipping on the appreciation or the kindness, it's always good just to lead with that. So I really appreciate it, hearing it from the sales side back to the ops side.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think obviously I was in that role for what, Jonathan and I were in that role for 6 months. Yeah, and it sucked, you know. You felt like you're being treated like, you know, kind of a peon, right? So I mean, I think it's just, from my point of view, it's like, how can we just like praise as much as possible when the things like genuinely, not like, you know, not like just saying thank you for whatever they're doing, but having genuine praise. And then when something does go wrong, I think you already have that relationship, and it's not just a pointing of fingers. It's like, how can we learn from what got messed up, right? Just a learning opportunity. So that's kind of where my head goes, and I could be better at it too. You know, I think Chelsea and Jenna, for the most part, are pretty damn good. And so we just kind of take them for granted for how skilled they are in reality. And so then sometimes when something goes wrong, then our head just goes into the mud sometimes. So,
well, and again, I really do feel like this started with me. I don't think it started with you guys. This started with me wanting more accountability, and then creating the survey process and making that part of it. I still think that we're going to want to do those surveys. I just think I'll like figure out a way to extract them from the calculation of the bonus, so that it's not so that it doesn't, so they don't feel impacted. We're not giving them your, by the way, they don't ever see what you wrote, right? So they don't get those surveys. What I would tell you is share your survey. You guys get a 5-star review. They were part of it, right? And so make sure that hey, thanks. We got another 5-star review. Really appreciate it. Because we get a lot. We get them. We mostly get those, right? Or we wouldn't have such a high, you know, NPS score. So that would be another way to show them that you appreciate them. It doesn't have to be with money. It just has to be, you know, they say this all the time, praise is more than raises. People want to feel valued, and people will always remember how you made them feel. And I think we can all do better. I certainly can. All right, that's it. Thanks, team. Good news on the Huntington deal. We're still, so they're telling me that, yeah, we can turn on the VA pricing, but we're having to wait for VA. They won't let me fund a loan unless VA says it's approved. So we sent the VA the check, and they can't find the check. We're having to overnight another check to the VA with on a test. Seriously, they're like, oh, well, we can't find it. Just send us another one. So it's the VA. And this has happened before. Huntington guys like going, yeah, this happens about every three people we get signed up. They lose the check. Send another one. And so they'll say, yeah, you guys can lock a VA loan, but we're not going to let you fund one until the VA issues the approval. So I think I want to put that on hold, like, because I don't want to be sitting here going like, hey, sorry guys, we can't fund your loan. So I don't want to be in that position until I get the VA approval. But good news on the 100 basis points on all the LMIT properties, and then an extra 50 on everything else. So everything across the board is 50, and then another 50 on LMIT. Go nuts, okay? Because that's pretty cool.
Have you ever talked to them about why they don't do 2-1 buy downs?
Yes, and you know what their answer is?
Huh.
What Pat says. He goes, because the servicing department can't figure out how to run it. And I go, are you serious? And he goes, that's it. And he goes, they can't figure it out. And I go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're a $300 billion bank. He goes, I know.
I mean, I looked at a mortgage statement recently, and it was even like hard for me to see that this client did a 2-1 buy down, because G and I were like, let's look at it and see what it comes up like on a mortgage statement. And I had one of my clients like, hey, can you send me that? And it came over, and I was like, God, this looks funky. You can't even tell what's left over still. And you have to do a bunch of manual calculations. So that'll be fun.
Because I did my first house was a 3-2-1 buy down, and I can remember it because rates were that high. And it was weird. I had no knowledge of what it was other than I'd get the new statement every year when the payment was going up 1%. And like, okay, now this is your payment. I was like, okay. And I had, I knew what I did when I set it up, but yeah, it's, I don't think servicers, because it is, you think about what's happened. Somebody parked a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And it's sitting over here, and we're going to peel money. We're going to pay it every month when we're going to add to your payment. Like it is kind of funky.
Who's somebody smarter than me that could come up with like a Excel sheet that could help us do like an automatic input for refis when those days come? Because I feel like if we could just do some sort of
for a buy down.
Well, yeah, just like when we're refinancing, to see like if we're ever doing a 2-1 buy down or not doing a 2-1 buy, but refinancing a client within that 2-year period, like that might be helpful to be like, hey, here's how much
you mean
principal is going to be. That's going to be applied to. What'd you say?
They're going to have principal reduction. So
right, exactly. So it's like it'd be
use
nice to have like a quick little Excel sheet we could throw into like, here's how much is left over that's going to be applied to the principal.
So is that sheet that we built, that John built, is that sheet, could you do it with that sheet if we just added where you are in the payments? If we just, you remember that sheet that John built so you could figure out how much money you needed for a 2-1 or a 1-0?
You could do that. Just plug in the numbers of what's remaining on it. That would work.
I feel you just need to know a place to plug in the rate, the original loan balance, and the month that they closed or the first payment date. And that should be able to calculate.
Right, exactly.
I don't know how to do it, but that should
gotta
be
be
all you
somebody
need.
that's smart
If
enough,
that's all
right?
we enter into that website to determine how much.
Give me the formula. I can build it.
Well, we could work it off of this sheet, the spreadsheet that we built that that does the math for you on how much the buy down is going to be. So you can figure out how big the buy down credit needs to be able to do a 2-1 buy down. You can work off of that sheet, I would think.
Yeah, that's more for like how much it's going to be rather than what the balance is when we do a refinance, right? Because that's what we're trying to figure out without having to do, because like say we get 10 clients in a day that reaching out and want to do a refinance, like if we've got to do a balance calculation on 2-1 buy down, that's an extra hour.
Well, but Giuseppe's right. You'd have to just know what the starting balance was.
Right.
If you know what the starting balance was, you could
most
figure out where
clients
they
gonna
are in the
be
payments.
our clients, right? For the most part. So you'll have those CDs.
Well, and you've got you'll know where they are on the payment schedule and what the amortization schedule, right? So you'd be able to see based on where they are in the amortization schedule, how much of that money they used if we could plug it into the spreadsheet somehow. I think there's a way to do it.
Fiverr, baby.
Fiverr?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
no doubt. The Excel
Michelle
wizards.
Troa.
Get the package.
Someone can't wait to build that for us.
Yeah,
And
for
the
like
rest of
50
us are
bucks.
like, I can't wait. I hope someone else builds it.
All right. What else? No, Giuseppe. Everybody.
What?
Thank you.
He chatted me.
Oh.
And the answer was no. All right, guys. Have an awesome day and keep grinding, man. We're entering Q4. It's going to be a blast because they're going to see a lot of people go. And we're doing actually a great week of apps. We're up to 41 applications for the week, so, or for the month. And so even though rates are being creepy, you guys are doing a great job, so keep it up. And we're done. Have a great day.